I'll start off. So I'm here with the one and only Bryan Casella. I came out, kind of had to run a little bit, a couple miles to get here.
As you can see by all the sweat beads on his head.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see that, but it was a little bit of a run, worth it. Got to hang out with this dude, meet him, and most of all, we're just gonna shoot this interview. Now, for the people who don't know who you are, explain how you got into real estate. Most of all, how it's benefited you.
Well, thanks for coming, dude. I appreciate you being here. This guy told me he'd come out here, and he actually did it, so respect for that. So Bryan Casella is my name. I'm 34 now. I have pretty much lived my whole life in Southern California. For some of you that don't know me, I played basketball collegiately and professionally for a couple years, and my career came to a screeching halt at 25 because of injuries, right? I had a second ankle surgery, and from that point forward, it was just difficult to play. I kind of came back to the States and was trying to figure my life out for a year, didn't know what I was gonna do. Then I kind of looked into real estate, kind of wet my beak a little bit, right? Went to offices, started talking to people, and it just made sense, right? I know that I forged a lot of skills through athletics, mentally and physically, and I knew I could do very well in real estate. So I started doing real estate, very old school, right? Door to door, cold calls, which we still do to this day. I mean, my team is cold calling here in the other room right now.
Yeah.
And it did really well, right? I did pretty good my first year, and I just kept building momentum. Simultaneously, I started doing social media, and that's when it really blew up to now, traveling and speaking, doing coaching and all that other stuff. So It's been a fun journey, man. It's been really cool.
Yep. So how can you explain the difference between passive and active marketing? Because you mentioned that in a lot of your videos, that it's very important that you separate the two and focus on more of the door knocking, cold calling.
Yeah. So for the people who aren't aware, active means you're involved with it, right? Yep. So that would be me making a phone call and reaching out to people. It would be me physically going to a neighborhood and picking some neighborhoods and going door to door, right? I'm actively involved in the generation of a potential lead. Versus passive would be Facebook advertising, videos, paid ads, that kind of stuff, where even an open house, right? If you don't promote it, you just open the door, you put your signs, and you sit in the house and you wait, that's passive. So when I'm sitting and waiting for something to come to me, it's passive. When I'm out there getting it, it's active.
Yep. Yeah. Great. So where do you see your whole real estate company or your real estate team spreading out in different cities? How do you see that next couple of years?
It's going to be crazy, man. It's going to be amazing because I was just telling you off camera that I just recently expanded to Delaware and Lakeland in Florida with my 2 new team leaders out there. So we're officially here in Southern California, and we're in 2 new cities. So in the next 5 years, I would say my guess, based on the plan that we created, would be probably about 10 cities, major cities like Miami, New York City, maybe like Seattle and those kind of places, Chicago possibly, and getting that going, because I feel like my brand is ready for that national recognition and expansion, and we're doing really well so far. Yep. Also, the coaching side of it, I'm really enjoying with like the events we're doing for Modern Success and all that. And like our 300 members, I've really built a very tight knit, close, successful, strong community, and I love that, because even nowadays, man, there's just so much BS out there. I don't know if you want me to cuss on your video, right?
Oh, you're good.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of bullshit out there, a lot of negativity everywhere you look. It's tough to find a group of people that are kind of on the same wavelength, and a lot of people feel alone, right? So that's one of the reasons I created that group. Again, traveling and speaking, I'm seeing myself do that a lot more. Yeah. Before the coronavirus shut down, I was doing at least 1 or 2 speaking gigs out of this area a month, right? And it's to the point now where I did 100 originally for free. Now, obviously, they're paying for my travels and paying for me to speak. Yeah. So it's really evolved. And, I have my investments, my 5 investment properties that I bought. So it's really just been this huge expansion. And now I'm looking at continuously expanding with less of the exertion of hustle and grind, like we were talking about. You're gonna have to do that in the beginning, for sure, all of you. But eventually, you put the right people there, you put the right systems in place, now you can grow and use that momentum that you've built to grow, right? That's why you'll always hear from like the top people. They'll tell you making my first like 100,000 or my first million was much more difficult than making 5 or 10 million, right? That initial momentum to get over that hump. So me cracking $1 million in income was easier in my eyes than cracking that 100,000. That felt like it's like
once you build the characteristics, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, it just felt like there was so much effort exerted into making 100,000 than $1 million. It was just about putting the right pieces in place. And then it just happened.
And it kind of goes back to the idea that people are conditioned, because when you first start, you're conditioned to think a certain way and act a certain way. So once you kind of break out of that conditioning, it becomes a lot more easier to become successful. So how can you explain, like, conditioning wise, how can people break out of that habit of, you know, sleeping, you know, till, you know, 10 o'clock at night after work or whatnot?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot, man. You have to remember that, you know, human beings run on patterns, right? And for those of you who might not be aware of some of this stuff, whether you realize it or not, unconsciously your mind is running patterns. So let's say if every morning, the first thing you do every morning is reach for your phone, or go to the coffee pot and make coffee, or do this or do that, that now becomes your pattern and you don't have to think about it anymore, right? And then you get conditioned to do that pattern over and over and over. So depending on where you're from, what your upbringing was like, you know, if your parents let you watch TV, what you watched, who gives you advice, all those are layers of conditioning. So now, as an example, if you're watching this video or you follow Jason and you're looking to be an entrepreneur and you're like, okay, I want to do this, right? You feel inspired, but your whole life you've been getting fed the opposite type of belief systems and philosophies. It's going to be very difficult for you initially to break out of it because your system has been built for patterns of like a 9-to-5, if we're going to call it that. But now you're saying, screw the 9-to-5, I want to be an entrepreneur. So now you've entered this realm that's all unknown, right? And it's shocking at first for people and difficult. And then you go through a bunch of emotions. It's just like, I don't know if you ever got news that something you thought to be true was false. And you're like, what? I thought that was true. It kind of messes with your mind. So you're shattering an old paradigm, introducing a new one. And what I mean by that is a way of being that you had before no longer serves you. So you have to, in essence, upgrade or evolve into a different you. And that means you have to shed your old patterns in your past, which means thought patterns, speech patterns, people, environment. That's difficult for a lot of people to let go because the mistake is, I want to evolve, but I want to bring everybody and everything with me. Can't do that. So that's an intricate process though, man. That would be like a 2-hour video, but it basically starts with, as an example, listening to the right stuff and the right people, getting around the right people, right? Getting your hands on the right material and books and videos to start to rewire this, creating new habits and breaking some of those old patterns. But that takes a lot of work in the beginning and it's not easy because your system is like, what's going on? I want to go back to what I was doing before. It's comfortable. So it's a battle of like the mind and the body and the emotions and everything, man.
Yeah, and how does that correlate with the push and let go pattern that some people have? Like they see success and then let off the gas pedal a little bit.
Well, I think people get this false sense of illusion that they're good, you know? Like anything you do, like let's say, like we'll take actors for example, they'll bust their ass for 3 or 4 months for a role to get ripped. Then you find out after the movie was done, they just kind of let loose for like a week or two and their body just completely went back to what it was. 3 months of work lost in 2 weeks. So that tells you the principle here in the universe you're gonna find in every avenue. So with that said, you know, if you build momentum, right? Think of like, I don't know, a plane lifting off. It has to build momentum and build up speed before it takes off. Same thing with the spaceships. They burn, 60-70% of their fuel before they even break the atmosphere, right? So that beginning push, it would be like as if the rocket takes off and then takes a break and it's like, well, I'm gonna stop. All that momentum you built, you're now gonna lose it. And then to restart it up requires all that new effort again. So it's really one of those things that I think it's just like a universal principle that people forget, right? And they give themselves this false sense of illusion because let's say like you're in real estate and I get a check for 10 grand and I've never seen that kind of money before. In my mind, I'm like, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm rich. I don't have to do anything. But in reality, you forgot all the steps that you took to get that check. And it has to be repeated over and over. So again, that's a multi-layered principle too. But it's really about understanding that this is a constant like journey and you have to keep that pace.
And you got to break away from the comfort, right?
Absolutely. And when you stop that pace, that's where a lot of the issues start coming in, you know? And then, because you want to sink back to comfort. That's really what it is. It's uncomfortable to keep going. It's uncomfortable to go from second to third gear and turn it up and be more intense. Where everyone's like, oh no, I've never done that. But if you're looking at somebody who's never done that in their life, it's going to take time. Right, a lot of conditioning, a lot of effort, and if you get somebody who's like 20 or 25 who's never done this, they're not going to change overnight. This is a process that can take years to change.
And your family members and your friends are most likely not going to be entrepreneurs. So if you take their advice, you don't take it from qualified people. That's going to hurt yourself, right?
Absolutely, because you have to think of it this way: that analogy that I gave you. of somebody transforming from the old you to the new you, you know, your family and whoever it is that brought you up, they have that old belief system. So with that old type of belief system and energy and advice, how is it going to serve you here?
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of people say, well, I feel alone, because they do. You're breaking out of, like, it would be like Neo breaking out of the Matrix. And then you see the real world, you're like, whoa, this is completely different. And that's why it freaks people out. Even in the movie, when he did that first simulation with Morpheus and he got out of it, he's like, no, this can't be true. That's people's reaction to this. Like when I tell them, hey, you know, they would watch my videos. I'm like, dude, real estate is not easy. Like, this is hard. No one's going to support you. And they're like, what do you mean? I watched it on TV and it looks all nice and easy, you know?
They don't see the background.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, it's not that they have ill intent. They're just, they're giving you advice about something they're not involved in. So that's one piece of advice I give people is make sure if you are going to listen to somebody's advice, it's coming from a qualified person. Mm-hmm. So if I'm listening to the top broker in real estate in the nation, giving me advice about real estate, and then my mom, just because it's your mom doesn't mean you hold them at the same level.
Yeah.
Mom has zero experience in real estate, never owned a business, but the broker knows everything. But what people will do is say, well, it's my mom. Yeah. They'll hold their advice on an equal playing field.
Exactly.
That's where they mess up, because now they start saying, well, he said this, but she said this. What do I do?
Yeah, I've had that happen in landscaping. You know, I had a lot of clients tell me, because since I'm young, they like to treat me a certain way, you know, like be the alpha. They're like, you know what, you should do this and this and this. And you know what, over time, you realize you piece it all together. Each one has a different idea on how to run my business. Yeah. So if I run their business their way, they're not even qualified to begin with. So
exactly.
You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. And you could even ask them, and I do that too.
Yeah.
Have you been in real estate? Have you owned a landscaping business? And if the answer is no, then they can keep talking, but I'm not listening to any of it.
Yeah, push it to the side. Exactly. So, you know, going with your success, how many passive income streams do you exactly have, or do you want to go for in the future?
You know,
avenues.
Passive income is great. I just think that the issue that I see with it right now is there's so many, and we saw a lot of them go away during this coronavirus thing. There's so many of, like, you've seen it, like the fake gurus or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's so many people pushing passive income, but you know, like you're 19, I'm 34. We're still able to hustle. We're not 60 years old walking around in a cane and we can't do anything. So I always tell people passive income is cool, but you got to focus on your active income. You got to get that main stream of income strong and flowing. Then you can start maybe branching off to 2 or 3 or 4, which is what I did. Then you can take those extra earnings from that momentum that you built and that strength that you've built in those income streams to then flow into something that's passive income.
That's smart.
And for me, passive residual has been like what I've done with eXp Realty, where all the people who come in that I've sponsored that begin to sell properties, we get a small cut from their sales until they cap for that year. Okay. Right, so that's a big income stream for me right now. Not so much passive, but probably more residual. All the products on my website are pretty residual because you create the product, you put it online, and it's always there and it sells. So I still make probably $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month just from that. Okay. Right. I have my 5 investment properties, which, me being in real estate, it makes sense to buy real estate, right? Yeah. That's cash flowing me about net probably about $4,000 a month.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So those, I would say, are the 3 main passive / residual income branches that I have. I do own stock in the company eXp Realty. Okay. But I'm not like a stock expert, so I'm not going to sit here and give people a speech about stocks because I don't know anything about them. We just get stocks as rewards. And then we have a program within the company where they'll take a portion of your commission of every sale and buy some additional stock with it. Okay. Right? So I'm involved with that as well. Yeah, agent equity program, that's what they call it.
Yeah, I think what Mark Cuban said is if you put some in stock, expect to lose it, right? Just kind of forget about
exactly. And not that I have a gripe against stock, it's just real estate I understand, these other things I understand. Yeah. If I study stocks and eventually do that, which I might, then I'll play the game. There's always risk in everything you do. There's risk in real estate, landscaping, everything. I want to take a calculated risk. So I think the best advice I can give people is focus more on your active income, right? Get that flowing and strong. Then take some of those extra earnings, put some aside for your business. You know, obviously have your money management system, and as you start accumulating more from that 10% that you put to the side or whatever it is, then you can use that to get passive income. I just think people chase passive income because they want to be lazy and they don't want to work.
Yeah,
that's really what I think.
Without working on the active, and a lot of the times active's better. And do you agree with me? It teaches you negotiation skills.
Absolutely,
it teaches you skills that you can't even learn on a job, and that I've learned over time. It's amazing. You look
absolutely,
back on it.
100%, man. Yeah, and I just think that it feeds that want that people have, that desire to be comfortable and the easy button, you know what I mean? And that's why even like all the stuff that I sell, because a lot of people have a bad stigma against people that sell, it's like, dude, all my courses are like for like cold calling, door knocking, like they're active like work type things. Even my coaching, I say, dude, this isn't some get rich quick scheme. This is, you got to work your ass off. Yeah. And it's going to take time. So even if you sign up, I recommend you stay for at least a couple months to be able to study this stuff and get better, because it's a process. Right? I'm not guaranteeing that you join here like be a millionaire in a week or whatever, right? Like some of these fucking ads that I see on all the YouTube videos.
Like I saw one the other day. It was like, work from your laptop, no money down, you don't have to use your money at all, you know, some bullshit excuse, some, you know, fake guru, right? But
right. And I'm not clowning everybody, right? Because if you want to sell a course and it's good, do it, right? I'm not saying everybody's fake. It's just they're feeding off that desire, like people's hope to, well, maybe I don't, because Bryan says I have to work hard. If I go with this guy, I don't have to work hard. So they funnel the people in that way. You
got a point. All right, well, I think that wraps things up. Thank you so much, Bryan, again.
Of course, man. Thanks for coming.
Wanting to do this. And most of all, if you're new, like, share, comment, subscribe, and more videos coming like this in the future. Peace.
Peace.
Awesome. You know how to do that, man. Sweet.
Hopefully it worked, man. Hopefully you got the audio. Hopefully.